Hey everybody, this is AJYT Avid and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be reviewing Ad Astra. If you have not seen Ad Astra, this review will contain spoilers. So, just making sure you have been warned. So, this is a story about Brad Pitt going up into space trying to basically rescue his father, who some people have theorized that he is still alive. So, let's see how it did. Alright, so the first thing that comes to mind with this movie is that the cast is really good. Of course, we have Brad Pitt, we have Tommy Lee Jones as the dad, we have Tulip from Preacher, of course, played by Ruth Negga, who is kind of like, not the head, but like one of the directors behind the base on Mars, where they have Brad Pitt send his father, played by Tommy Lee Jones, the message. And this movie has some pretty good visuals. First Man walked away from the Oscars last year with Best Visual Effects, which I don't think was 100% fair. I mean, it was fine, but I mean, it was up against Avengers Infinity War and Ready Player One. I just don't see how it won that. How it took it away from Infinity War anyway. And this movie, the space parts of it were like, it's just people drifting out in space, which is a lot of this movie. It looks good and it moves well. A lot of it is just silent, or it'll just have like some heavy breathing, or a little bit of talking over it, or in some case gunshots, and with the rovers, and explosions and all that. So those parts were pretty interesting, and there are a few emotional beats in this movie. Of course, during the end, basically Brad Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones, he meets back up with Tommy Lee Jones' dad. They get all out of his base, and of course that's when Tommy Lee Jones is like, just let me go, because he doesn't want to go back to Earth. He's basically like, Brad Pitt's like, come on, let's go home. He was like, this is my home. Because he's been there for years, because Brad Pitt grew up thinking that he was dead. So, him realizing that he's alive, and then him seeing him, and him meeting back up with him was pretty emotional. And then, of course, he finally decides to grant his father's wish, and lets him drift off into space. Now, we don't see Tommy Lee Jones die, but, I mean, it's pretty much confirmed. He was on his last legs anyway. I mean, he did not look too good in that final act when he finally found him. But yeah, and of course, Brad Pitt's pretty much just like, I can't even... there's a lot of space movies nowadays where, like, the main character is depressed, and they just deal with that depression out in space, because Brad Pitt's character's wife leaves him. So, I mean, they've repeated that in so many movies. First Man, Lucy in the Sky is doing it, I believe. Gravity. Anyway, the bad stuff about this movie. Whew, boy. Oh my gosh. This movie is horribly written. It is just a absolute mess from start to finish. The pacing is all over the place. There are stuff that there's some plot points that either go nowhere, they just drag out just immensely. This movie is way too long. There's a couple moments where you're like, is this the ending? No. Is this how they're gonna end it? And it's just, they do something else that's I call it fake out endings. So you think it's gonna be the ending and they fake you out, and it's really not. And yeah, this movie just moves incredibly slow, and we move past several things that we probably should see in the movie take place. Like, there's like one small little scene where the wife like looks at him, and then walks out the door. Like, it didn't really click with me that she was leaving him there until, like, later on in the film. I was like, oh, she left him in that scene. You know, they never really clear that stuff up. You know, it's just that one scene, and then you're just supposed to automatically know that she left him. And there's just some completely pointless side plots that just go nowhere. Like, on their way to go see Tommy Lee Jones, they're supposed to go see Tommy Lee Jones, right? It's Brad Pitt and a whole bunch of other crew members, and you know, they get a distress call, and they go off on this side plot that we don't even find out what the side plot, what the distress call was even for. Like, they just go to the place where they got it from, and then they get attacked, and then these random space baboon things, because it was like an animal experimental ship, I believe they said, you know, attacks the crew member, kills the captain, so they gotta go back to Mars. Well, damn, that was pretty pointless, wasn't it? And then later on, Brad Pitt decides to go with them again, but he's not authorized to go on the mission to go save his dad, even though it's his dad. They really should let him go. I guess they see him as a threat, but he says, I am not a threat. And then the guys just start loading their guns and going out there to the airlock to kill him. Like, oh my gosh, he just said he's not a threat, so why are you guys doing that? I don't know, I just found that part annoying. But, you know, there are some really hardcore deaths in this movie. Like I said, with the baboon, you know, it chews off the dude's arm and stuff in his face, and then the woman gets killed by the rockets, I guess the burst and the power of the rockets just pushes her face up against the window and busts that open. But it was just completely pointless, because the distress signal had nothing to do with the main task at hand. Even Brad Pitt points it out. He's like, we really shouldn't do this. You know, we need to just keep going. And, you know, it cost the captain his life. And, I don't know, this movie, it just feels like 20 or 30 minutes too long. I know it's like an hour and 54 minutes. It should have at least been an hour and 30. Because it's just, there are some shots where it's literally just him speaking into a mic or just into the computer. What they should have done is just not have him do that, because that gets people bored. And I'll be honest, I started drifting off a little bit too, and that's normally not like me in a movie. But there's moments where you'll drift off to sleep because he's just talking to the computer. They should have put the voiceover of him talking over other things. Overall, Ad Astra could have easily been like a 6.5 or a 7, but due to its, you know, even though it has a really good premise, it just didn't follow through, you know, and exceed my expectations, and it didn't do much for me. It's just a very bland film overall. I really wanted this movie to be good. Like, I really did. But I don't know. Like First Man last year. First Man I wasn't too much of a big fan of. It was just alright. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie only. It's in my top 10 least favorite movies of the year right now. So hopefully it'll get bumped out of there, because that'll be a damn shame, because I wanted this movie to be good. Oh man, but yeah, 4.5 out of 10 for this movie. Anyway guys, that was my review of Ad Astra with Brad Pitt starring. He's not in the video. But I'm going to thank you all very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of Ad Astra down in the comments below. Goodbye.